What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. This is episode 11, and today we're talking with Sam Hahn. Sam is the creator of the League of Legends Anonymous podcast and the WeldonCast. He's also the host of the Grind Esports podcast. He's documenting his journey of getting into esports through podcasting. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, Sam, and what the League of Legends podcast is all about, and also, how the heck did you come up with the moose antlers?
Yeah, so first of all, Spencer, thanks for having me here tonight. I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm really very, very excited to be seeing another esports podcast popping up. I know podcasts are kind of booming right now, and I'm really excited for the possibilities of it, and I feel like everyone's really slow onto that bandwagon, so I'm really, really happy that you're doing this, and I wish you the best of luck, and I'm super excited to see what you're going to do with this.
You too.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I'm Sam, aka Just Casual, in most of the games that I play. I primarily play League of Legends, and I've been playing since Season 1, so that's 7 years ago, 2010 or so. Still bad at the game, but I guess at least experienced enough to start talking about it. I remember watching the first World Championship in Season 1, which was just 100 people in the crowd or something, and just watching it on a stream. So I guess I've kind of been there from the beginning. And just with that, I decided to hey, I've been playing this for a while. I like talking about it. I finally hit plat, so I'm I kind of feel like I want to share the wealth of information that I've gathered during this time. And I joined a podcast called the Sarcastic Summoners. It didn't work out that well. Decided to start my own podcast maybe 6 months later. And now it's been 3 years since I've been doing Lola, where we just focus on making entertaining and educational having entertaining and educational conversations about League of Legends to really help our community get better at the game. So it's not as esports focused, but about maybe about a year ago, I really started to be hey, could I do this for real? What would happen if I really committed some time into this? And I started reaching out, and I ran into Weldon Green on Twitter, and he actually, from my Twitter profile, he contacted me. He's hey, are you trying to produce podcasts? I'm yeah, I am. And if you guys don't know who Weldon Green is, he is a sports psychology trainer. So he does coaching. He's coached or been on the coaching staff of TSM, CLG, when they both got first in the NA finals for whatever split he was coaching them. He's currently coaching G2 Esports in Europe, and last split they got second at the midseason invitational tournament, the big international tournament. G2 is not doing as well this season, or this split, but we'll see how playoffs hold out. But with that, I got in contact with him and started the Weldon Green podcast, or on YouTube it's called the WeldonCast, just because it's a lot shorter to say it that way. But with that, we kind of documented his journey with G2 and also helped kind of compile all his information about performance, because he really likes to talk about optimizing performance of players, whether it's people trying to get into the esports scene, just a casual gamer, or professional athlete, or professional gamers, athletes, whatever you want to call them. And we started focusing on that, and I helped him create a narrative with that, so I produced that podcast for him. And let's see, there's the Grind podcast, which we talked about. It's only, as of this moment, it's only 2 episodes, but I got in contact with the CEO of Ever Esports, the Clever Ever, aka Danny, and he runs an organization in esports. So he has a COD team, 2 League of Legends teams. I think he's in Smash as well, and a few other games, and they're trying to grow. And I'm hey, let's document your journey a little bit, because I know you're a fan of Gary Vee. I'm as well. So this whole documenting and telling your story, I'm totally in love with that. So I do interviews with their players, their staff, and we just talk about how the amateur scene is, because I think the amateur scene is pretty invisible in most of these esports right now, because especially in League of Legends, everyone just watches the LCS, the League Championship Series, and barely anyone watches the Challenger Series, which is getting into the LCS, and then very little people watch the collegiate and amateur scene. And barely know anything about that. So I wanted to give that a little highlight. Sorry that was so long.
No worries. Now, how the heck did you come up with the moose antlers? Tell me the skinny of that. Like, what's the quick story of moose antlers?
So it was the first April 1st episode we had, and we rebranded as, so it's the League of Legends Anonymous podcast, and we rebranded as the League of Legends Anonymous podcast. And then someone created like a moose like icon for us, like a character that we actually have on like a t-shirt too. And it just kind of stuck, and the moose kind of became our unofficial mascot. And then there's a type of skin in League of Legends where it's called the Definitely Not skins, where they dress them up in like, those ridiculous frames with a big nose and mustache to like cover your identity. They just like kind of do that with all these champions, and they're the Definitely Not skins. So we put a moose on that because it's like kind of the whole anonymous idea. So, it was funny. I guess enough people thought it was funny, so we kind of just kept it around. So that's why we have antlers on our logo now.
It's definitely clever branding. I got to give you that. It's,
Thanks.
It's very unique and memorable to your show. So for sure.
I'm glad to hear that.
Now, what does esports mean to you? I know you've done a lot in League of Legends and things like that, but when talking about esports in general, what does that mean to you?
Oh, man. It's, I grew up, I'm Korean. My parents were immigrants to here, so I'm the typical, I guess, second generation story where it's like, hey, work hard, study hard, become a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or whatever. We sacrificed all this kind of stuff. So, I'm an engineer right now. I went to school for that. I did well in school for the most part. And I played video games when I was a kid and got yelled at for playing way too many video games. So, video games was always this thing that I was like, I really love and I really appreciate, but at the same time, it's like, I'm not supposed to be playing this because I don't have time and I'm supposed to be like being successful. So then I see other people that play video games, it's their outlet of life, right? They might be the stereotypical basement dweller, like low social class, or not class, socializing abilities and stuff like that. And finding an online community when the internet came out, like, is a game breaker, game changer. And suddenly these people are able to find community. And when I say these people, I'm also including myself. And it's just really cool to see that. And then now I see like, hey, people can actually be a form of entertainment in the esports industry where they're playing at a professional level, just like the NFL and traditional sports. And these guys are able to live out a life that they never would have 20 years ago. And seeing people come together to enjoy that, I really think like gamers are one of the most passionate people on this earth. Passionate community. And you see that when it comes to video games and developers, when like the audience just hates whatever changes happen in any game because they really care about the games that they're playing and they want them to be the best, and they also don't want to be BS'd by whatever companies that are creating these games. So when it comes to esports, I love competition. I played golf, I did wrestling, I played soccer, football. I love competing and I love sports, and video games is another extension of competing for me. So being able to see people do that and almost like idolize for it, it's really cool. And then hearing the stories behind these people, like I think in the NFL and NBA you hear about a lot of like people, I came from nothing, I was from the hood, I played basketball all the time, and suddenly I've made it and live a great life, or something like that. With esports, I think you hear the stories where it's like, I was picked on, or I just like didn't do well in these things, or I didn't like school, but I loved video games, I knew I was smart, I just didn't care about anything else. And now they have like a cool story where they are able to inspire future generations and just like even people that are older than them. So I love esports in that aspect.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I say that esports is one of the most passionate communities, and I've used the word visceral before. I think that's how I like to describe it, is just it's a passionate, visceral community. Now, taking us on a little journey for a moment, what's been the worst moment so far in your journey?
Oh boy. Probably like every other month I hit like a low point, to be honest. I know some of your guests on here already kind of made it. They maybe own an organization, or they have their first like job as like an artist or something like that, or graphic designer, I think was your first guest. So they're kind of got their foot in the door in esports. While me, I guess maybe some people say I do have my foot in the door now with some of the connections I've made. But at the same time, I don't think I have like a very legit thing. I don't have like, I can't put it on my card that I'm a professional in the esports scene, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm still totally in that like hustle mode and like hit my head on the grindstone and just like push and try to make that breakthrough. And I've had a few of them. Yeah, I know you do. And because I'm in that area where I'm struggling, like I have a job that requires 40 hours of my time at least a week, the normal desk job as an engineer. And then I'm married, so I have my family responsibilities as well. We have a nice, cute puppy that still needs tons of attention from us. We just moved into like a 2-bedroom apartment this week, and we have like, my wife's family is very international, so we're traveling every now and then to go see her dad, her aunt, like all over the globe. So things are really busy. Everyone has their real life stuff. So then when you're separated from that and when you're struggling, you're comparing yourself to others, which is always a bad thing. Life gets you down, and it's not something this is definitely not the path of least resistance. So every now and then I hit like a downswing where I'm like, oh, I'm so negative. Like I suck at this. Like, am I really good enough? And it's when I let those lies creep into my head. That's where it really, really sucks, because ultimately, like, talent means something, but hard work is really, really important. And I'm still very, very new to the journey, and I know how to be patient, and I know it's not going to happen overnight. I don't think a lot of people know that, but I come to that realization that it won't happen overnight. So yeah, I hit a lot of low points where it's just like things are really tough, really busy, and some of this I'm doing alone, even though I have like a 10-person team at least for the League of Legends Anonymous podcast, the Lola podcast. I mean, those guys they're not committed to it like I am, in the sense that they didn't sign up for what I'm trying to do, right? We're just a whole bunch of guys that like drinking beer and talking about League. So they help every now and then, but they have families, they have their obligations, but in no way can I tell them like, hey, you need to be putting 25 hours a week into this. Like, no, that's not their thing. So I'm doing a lot of things solo, so my wife is definitely like a huge crutch for me to help me keep going, and my number one fan, so that's really, really helpful. But yeah, every now and then I definitely hit the ground. I'm like, I don't want to get up right now.
It's definitely it's lonely going out on your own and doing something and pursuing your passion, if you will. It's definitely lonely, and it's not for the faint of heart, for sure.
Yeah, and it's because esports is so young, right? It's not like, hey, I can go to school for esports. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5 years it might happen. I mean, kids are going, getting scholarships, even if they're like platinum in League, which is like top 10%. So it's a significant amount, but you can find platinum players anywhere. They're getting some of they're getting some scholarship for school. So that's really cool. That's not the world that I lived in when I was in college. But yeah, there's no easy path, and that means that you have to do it a lot on your own.
Mm-hmm. Now, transitioning a little bit to what's your best accomplishment or your biggest accomplishment so far?
Finishing season 1 of the Weldon Green podcast. It was 8 episodes long, and we're working on season 2 right now. But just being able to make that connection with Weldon Green, which was like huge. I was like so surprised. I talked to him December 24th, so like Christmas Eve basically, or December 23rd, like one of those days.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, basically. And he's like, hey, let's talk about this. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm about to go somewhere like tomorrow on a plane and like 4 a.m, but yeah, let's talk at 10 p.m. I'm totally down to talk to you right now. And we did. And then like after I did my first episode for him, which was really grueling and hard because it's not something I've done before, because the Lola podcast is like we just guys sitting around a table. Whoa. What is it? Yeah, we're just sitting around on our computers over Skype or Discord talking about the game. But this one was like I'm creating a narrative, compiling clips from his YouTube channel, and like trying to find the narrative and the story within a specific topic of performance, like tilting and stuff like that. So doing the first episode, which I listened to now, I'm like, oh, it's so bad. Weldon coming back to me is like, whoa, this is really good. And after like the episode 4, he's like, oh, you're interested in trying to make your own production company potentially, which is like my 25-year goal, which I don't know if it's realistic or not, but got to set a big goal, shoot for the stars, land on the moon kind of thing. And
yeah, absolutely.
He was like, hey, yeah, like if you ever decide to like really fully commit to it, like let me know and maybe I'll like be a partner or investor. I'm like, that is really cool to hear from someone that's like in the scene. Like, so then getting done with the whole 8 episodes and like seeing mostly positive, actually seeing negative feedback was great because it's like, oh, people hate this. I know I've made it kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really cool. The positive feedback I got, the numbers that we saw, and still the potential that's going on. Just getting actually something done was really, really cool and gave me like a huge boost to continue doing what I'm doing.
Now, let me ask you this. I'm going to veer off the script a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start seeing feedback for the show? Like when you're doing your shows, when did you start seeing feedback from that? And, what did that kind of mean to you in the sense of actually getting some valuable feedback to critique your show on?
Ooh, okay. So this is good. I think you're going to like what I have to say. So with the Weldon Green podcast, actually, the first episode, so we put it on, iTunes and SoundCloud, but when it comes to like a gaming audience that's probably under 18, I don't think they're really into podcasts right now. So it wasn't until we started putting them on YouTube where we really got like feedback besides like random tweets that are like, oh, I love what you're doing, like that kind of thing. And the first episode, a lot of people, I think there are more things like, oh, you should have done this, or like, oh, I don't like how this is done, or like, why is this guy talking so much, and those kind of things. So
yep,
I was responding to all this because I want them to know that I'm there, like put a face to what's going on, and to also like engage with them. And I talked to Weldon about it. Actually, Weldon reached out to me. He's like, hey, Sam, like, don't take criticism too harshly from these people, because what you're supposed to measure when you talk to them is how well are you reaching your audience, right? Mm-hmm. But you also have to understand that they might not be the audience that we're trying to reach, right? We're not just trying to get like big numbers. We're trying to reach specific people because this is a branded podcast for Weldon Green, for him to like advertise and solidify his personal brand. So he's not necessarily searching for all these people that are giving these like butthurt comments towards me, but we're also understanding like, are we hitting the mark with this specific audience? And if we're not, like, do we want to change that? And he told me that if I'm actually looking for criticism, you don't go to the comments on Reddit and YouTube. You go to other experts that know what they're talking about, that have proven that they know what they're talking about. So if I want critique, actual critique from people, I should be talking to like my co-host on the podcast, which I did. I should be asking Weldon. I should be talking to other podcasters that might be in the esports scene or in League of Legends scene or whatever. If I know someone that's like working at NPR, I could be like, hey, what do you think about this podcast? Those are the type of people that I should be looking for my critique and criticism about. But the comments in the public social media realm, that especially the anonymous realm, that is only a measure of like how well are you reaching that audience.
Right. Yeah, that's really, really great advice. Now, what makes, obviously you have a lot of passion for esports. You can tell it's bleeding out of your eyeballs, I can tell. What makes esports so exciting?
Ah, boy. The thing I love about esports is like it's growing, right? And I hate the question where it's like, oh, if you could change one thing in your past, what would you have done? Because like you can't change anything, so it's kind of like a tough thing to think about. But I wish I jumped on it earlier. I wish I found my passion for it earlier and wasn't so afraid to commit to it earlier. Because, for example, I applied to Riot Games for oh boy, was it like 3 years ago or something? And I got all the way to the on-site interview and I totally botched it. And so I didn't get the job. That's okay. But like if I applied to Riot like a year earlier, man, they have people that are like, hey, you're kind of smart, or like, oh, you're passionate, like, come on in, right? As things get legitimized, especially in League of Legends, you have the franchise system coming in, and you have all these NBA teams and brands and NFL brands like investing and buying things out. I think it's going to get harder and harder to get in as just someone that's really passionate about it. You're definitely going to need the experience. You definitely might need like a degree in journalism to become like maybe a podcaster. Maybe you do need a journalism degree to do that. Maybe you actually need to be going to school for video stuff to be a videographer for a team. While a year or two ago, maybe you just had to be the girlfriend of the owner, or like you just needed to know someone that kind of got you there, and you've done like 5 YouTube montages, so that's good enough to get you into the door. So, but still, it's really young. So being able to jump in is really cool. Knowing that if I was part of the esports scene, that I could have an actual big impact on it is really, really exciting as well.
Yeah, esports is, like you said, it's so exciting because there's so much opportunity. You can, if you want to be a writer, you just start writing on Medium, and if you're good and people like your stuff, if you can put it in front of them somehow, then I'm a firm believer that the cream will rise to the top, and if you have talent writing or editing video or taking pictures or designing logos, like I feel like if you have good talent and you're able to put it in front of the right people, that you will definitely get noticed. Yeah,
and especially it's really cool because the target demographic, the majority of people watching this are like 18 and under, and they're all using the internet plenty and like using the internet to write on Medium or do a YouTube channel. Like that is so easy to actually reach an audience. You just have to have quality content, patience, and find a way to get attention, right?
Yeah. Now, this is the part of the show I call the 5-question combo breaker. It's kind of a play on words from fighting games and things like that. First question is, best advice someone has ever given you?
Best advice someone has ever given me. I think that has to be from watching Gary Vee like religiously for a year. Patience. I keep telling my wife and I keep telling people 2017 is all about patience for me. It's not happening overnight. It's not going to happen next year. My goals are big because they should be big, and that's going to require a ton of patience.
Awesome. What do you think the esports industry needs to continue to grow and be successful?
They need all these people like me. Well, not necessarily like me. That sounds really conceited. But they need people that are really passionate, that are willing to actually jump the fence and dive into the deep end to finally do what they think is kind of risky, but if they're really passionate about it and have good work ethic, they will thrive in this scene where there's a lot of talent, a lot of people that are involved that are not talented, that are not good at their job, that are not professional, and they're just waiting for you to be taking their spot and making a better product, better community, better atmosphere for the future of esports.
Best play you've seen, or what's the most memorable moment for you in esports?
Oh, boy. I'd have to say there's this game between, I believe it was Fnatic and SK Gaming. It was like Season 2 or something where there was a backdoor where, what's his name? Oh, gosh. Fnatic's Golden Boy. Wow, what's his name? Anyway, this guy, XPK teleports into the base while there's a base race, and he starts hitting the Nexus with Kassadin while 2 people back try to defend the base, and he just dodges all their attacks and totally wins the game by himself in a base race. It was epic. That play is named. Everyone talks about XPK when you're doing a backdoor in the game, and it was so exciting where everyone was on their feet, and you will see it on any YouTube, best plays ever in League of Legends. It was amazing.
Share a very valuable resource that's been beneficial to you in your journey.
Oh, boy. Twitter. At least for League of Legends. I think for most of esports, Twitter is huge, and networking is huge. Like I've said before and hinted at, a lot of it is who you know, and they open doors for you that you're not expecting. And as long as you're good to them and good to your community and able to talk to them on Twitter, Twitter is such a powerful weapon to know people, communicate with your community, and also just find awesome content and awesome people.
Awesome. What do you think, going on a sidebar for a second, what do you think is the biggest social network for esports? Do you think it's Twitter?
At least for League of Legends, it's Twitter. Which is weird because everyone keeps saying Twitter is dying, which I don't think it is because there's nothing to replace it right now. And until there is, Twitter is still there. I think Snapchat might be good too, but it has to be Twitter just because you're just having conversations. Everyone wants to talk to each other. And Instagram and Snapchat, you can't really have public conversations that easily. Even though those are really, really valuable, I think Twitter is the place to go. Yeah.
I'm finding that there's influential people on Instagram, like the big names are on Instagram, but it seems like Instagram is just flooded with streamers and meme accounts.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I tried so hard to make I didn't try that hard, but I tried for a little bit, getting the Lola podcast on Instagram and trying to make a presence on there and stuff. But everyone just wants to meme there, and I don't think our audience, we target maybe college and up with our audience, so it's a minority. I don't think they're really, really in Instagram, and if they are, they're not using it the way I'm trying to, or I just haven't figured it out. Because also hashtags for League of Legends stuff is cosplays and montage plays and girls. Yeah, girls. So yeah, it's not working for the podcast scene.
Yeah. What's one daily habit that's been the biggest factor to your success?
Oh boy, I wish you asked me this 2 months ago when I was still doing this. I was waking up around anywhere between 5 and 6:30 before work, and I'm not a morning person. And a lot of that was due to my wife's work schedule, was actually having her come in to work at 6 a.m. So it was really easy for me to go to bed earlier since we're going to bed together, and then waking up. And just getting my day started that early and actually working 2 hours, 3 hours before work. It actually got me energized at work because I was so pumped at what I was doing. And that was a great habit. And now our sleep schedules have changed, both of our work schedules and stuff. So I don't know how I'm going to get back to that, but maybe working an hour or two before going to my quote-unquote real-life job is still possible. But it takes a lot of self-discipline, but it was such a great habit.
Yeah. I go in spurts from time to time. I'll go 6 months to a year of waking up at 6 a.m. And then for the most part, I'll get up at 7, depending on, a lot of times I'm up already because of family.
Sure.
So I'm up anyways, but I shoot for a 7 o'clock wake up most of the time.
Yeah.
Now, but you're right. It's a good habit if you can get into the habit. But again, if you're going to bed at 1, 2 a.m., you need that extra hour or two. It all depends.
I need unfortunately, I'm not a person that can just operate on 6 hours of sleep 7 days a week. I can't do that. I've tried, and it just makes me depressed. Sleep is an important thing, and some people are blessed where they don't need 4 hours. Some people, like me, need their 8, and I usually get 7. And it really brings me down. And I think that's actually a huge part of my lows, too, when I kind of overwork myself a little bit or I don't manage my time well enough. And so I start losing sleep and I sacrifice sleep, and then I just, can't function. And then I think that's when a lot of the negative thoughts come in when I'm, tired and just, cranky.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Now, we'll close out the show with you giving us your perspective on what it takes to be successful in starting a esports podcast, being a host, and just doing what you're doing on your journey. Talk about, whatever you define as success, but tell us a little bit from your perspective, what it takes to do what you're doing and some tips for people who are maybe thinking about going the same route, whether it's podcasting or creating video content or just creating esports content in general. Give us some tips on what you think it takes.
Yeah, success has to be defined differently by everyone. Don't take someone's definition of success maybe as a template or a starting point, but you shouldn't take it as your own. Everyone's success is different. Success for me would be if I'm able to live as a full-time podcaster or full-time in gaming and something like that. Being able to quit my job as an engineer would be really cool. Or I should say, being able to change my career into gaming or esports and stuff like that would be really, really cool. I like being an engineer, but this would be even better. And being able to do that financially comfortably, eventually. I know that's not going to happen at the start, but that's my thing of success. I don't necessarily I did mention 25 years from now I want to have my own production company making esports content. If I don't reach that, I'm not going to feel like a failure. Having like a huge company or like pride or ego is not necessarily my thing. For some people it is, and that's perfectly fine. It's just not my thing. It would be great if I was able to do that because I think I would be even more financially comfortable. But, I just want to be able to, for me, success would be really happy with my work and being able to wake up. And I know it's going to be work and some days will suck, but really enjoying what I do. And then with that, not having that selfishness to do that, be a crutch on my financial life and my wife and my family's financial life. Now, for my advice to others, I would say that to hit that success, you really need to like commit and do something. And there's nothing wrong with like failing. There's nothing wrong with trying 3 episodes of a podcast and stopping because like you realize that you can't do it, because you have to start. Like that's the hardest thing. And don't think that I'm a success story in starting, because there are other projects in my head that I've been like, oh, I need to do this. I can do this. I need to put the time to do this. And I don't have good excuses why I didn't start them. I have plenty of excuses, but none of them are legit. But there are some things that I've started, like the Weldon podcast, the Grind podcast, and the Lola podcast. Those are all things that I eventually started, and Lola has been going 153 episodes plus for 3 years. Like I've never thought I'd be able to do this consistently, and it's all about getting started. And sorry, one more piece of advice. Don't worry if you're not good enough. I don't think I'm a talented speaker. But I do know that I make people feel comfortable. I am welcoming. Most people like me. Very little people hate me. I'm not the most popular person, but I know I can create a good environment. And I listen to a ton of podcasts, and I've been playing League for a long time, and I followed the esports scene in League almost religiously for the first 6 seasons, not so much this last season. So because of that, not my talent, is why I'm able to hit the quote-unquote amount of success I've already had, which some people might see as success, some people might not see as success, but you really got to do it, and you really got to immerse yourself in it. You don't need to be like super talented to do a podcast. You don't need to be an amazing speaker. You don't need to be super good looking to be on TV or whatever. Like, there are ways to get around it, and all of that is going to be predicated on hard work.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now, share with the podcast listeners where they can engage with you and where they can find your League of Legends podcast and the WeldonCast and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Twitter handle, which is probably my most active social media, is JustCasual9. Because unfortunately, Just Casual is taken with a person with 0 tweets, 0 engagement, 0. It boils my blood. But anyway, yeah, JustCasual9. On Instagram, it's JustCasual9 as well. And then I have a YouTube channel that the channel is Roaring Asian, RAWRINGAZN. I'm really, really embarrassed about that because I made that YouTube channel like a decade ago. But once I get 100 subscribers, I can change it. But I haven't been putting too much time into my YouTube channel. Mostly there, I'm just documenting kind of what I'm doing and vlogging, kind of like what you're doing with your like daily spends stuff. Yeah. So that's my YouTube channel. Besides that, you can find the League of Legends Anonymous podcast. Just search for it on iTunes or Google. lolapodcast.com is our website. There like I said, we talk about League and how to get better at it, and we have a community on our Discord. But you can find that all on our Twitter page at Lola Podcast or our website lolapodcast.com. The Grind podcast about the amateur esports scene, that will be on, if you Google the Ever Esports YouTube channel, you'll find that there. It's not released on audio except on SoundCloud, but it's probably easier just find it on YouTube and Google the Grind podcast. Yeah. I'm sorry. You'll have to do the Ever Esports YouTube channel because we just changed the name, and it's a really small YouTube channel right now. And then,
we'll link up everything in the show notes too.
Sure. And then the Weldon Green podcast is on iTunes, SoundCloud, all that stuff. Just search the Weldon Green podcast. And then it's also on his YouTube channel, Mind Games GG, I believe it is. So, yep.
Awesome. Thanks again. We'll make sure to link up everything in the show notes and make sure everybody's got links to that. Definitely go check out those podcasts. They're definitely very informative, educational, and fun. And I just want to thank you again for coming on the show And really appreciate you taking out some time tonight and sharing your esports narrative with all the listeners. And just really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me again. It was a lot of fun. Good question. I really enjoyed this.
Awesome. Thank you. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that if this all goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Thank you, listeners. I really appreciate you. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed and shared the show. Your word of mouth is amazing.